Hello, everyone. We are calling to order the June meeting of the Land Preservation Commission. Welcome. The first thing on our agenda was to welcome our new member, and she's not here yet, so we will postpone that till she gets here. And David Reed, you volunteered to be secretary, and thank you very much. Would you please call the roll?
Daryl, we know Daryl and Janine are going to be absent.
Correct.
Mary Beth is not here yet. Lisa?
Here.
I'm here. Tim?
Yes.
Liz?
Here.
And Chris is attending, Chris Chang, and Mary's not here yet.
But it's coming.
So we have four. We can start the meeting.
Okay, we can start. Has everyone had a chance to look over the agenda, and are there any additions? I did have the one agenda of Pam Boyd's communication that I sent to you all a little bit late, and it was posted. But I just wanted to, I think I've asked David to clarify where we are on that. So I would like to add that under old business. Any other changes to the agenda? If not, there's a motion and support to approve. So moved.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is approved. Janine's minutes, did you all have a chance to look those over? And did you see any, do you want to make any changes? If not. Yeah, thank you.
I have no change to minutes.
No changes to minutes. I don't either. We have a motion.
I make a motion to approve.
Support,
Support.
all in favor, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes from last month are approved, and we are gonna go back up one step, and I want to welcome you.
Hi.
This is Mary Beth Lynch. We are so happy you're here.
Thank
We've been
you.
Operating with Six for a while,
Okay,
and we're so glad to have you here, and I'm gonna let you introduce yourself a little bit later on, but I wanted to welcome you
thank you.
right up front.
Yes, I just got a whirlwind tour.
Oh, good,
properties.
perfect, perfect, yeah.
That was now? Oh, good.
Yeah,
Oh,
we
like just now?
just not like that's.
We just-
Oh, that's why you're late.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
that's a good, that's a good reason. All right. So we have approved our agenda, we have approved our minutes from last month. And it's time for public comments, and Kathleen is here.
Good afternoon, Commission. Kathleen Brand, Scio resident. Public service announcement on Saturday, June the 14th. There's an organization that is, there's a group of people that are organizing protests against some of the actions taken by our federal government. I wanted to make you aware of that. June 14th. There's over 20, there's up almost 2,000 separate events that are going on, so I encourage people to attend because it's our democracy.
4 to 6 p.m., right?
It
It's,
depends on
No
the,
Kings is 4 to 6 p.m. on Saturday, yeah,
it depends on the event.
great. I think that's the one at the federal building downtown.
You can, in Ann Arbor, yes.
Uh-huh.
This webpage, nokings.org, you can find different groups of people, and some of them start at different times, so encourage people to think about going to that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone online, Chris, that wants to, Rob is there.
Hi,
Hi, Rob.
Hi, everyone. Rob Pattinson, Scio Township resident. Another public service announcement. On June 30th at 5 p.m., the Parks Department is having a Township Hall Park ceremony for the Eagle Scout project that installed the natural play space up there. And that'll be the first time we have a chance to celebrate both the Eagle Scout and the and Township Hall Park, and that's June 30th at 5 p.m.
Thank you, Rob. So that's Brandon Boyette, and the Township Hall Park is right back here, you know, and a lot of people don't know that, but there is a park, and he's done this cool playground, so as Rob said, that we're gonna open it that day, so I hope
Phase one.
everyone can come. Phase one.
Phase one.
Phase one, yes. And he got his Eagle Scout project that way. Anyone else?
No other hands are raised.
Okay. Reports, the reports were, we have 3 of them were available online. Any questions about those? Any thoughts on those? And I will give the Parks one and break in with questions if you have any. Parks met yesterday afternoon. David and I were both there. Relevant to our work, Mrs. Van Curler from the Van Curler
Ah.
Preserve.
Carol.
Yes, is donating $5,000 to fund benches at both entrances to Van Curler Preserve and signage for the preserve. And she is super excited about that, and so that's very cool. There are, I know, isn't that great? There are 4 seasonal staff members who are doing great work and really hacking away at the invasives and doing various surveys and stuff like that. And Murphy, our Parks Director, is very happy with what they are doing and their progress. Let's see, let's see. I guess the other thing I was gonna mention was what Rob mentioned, was the Township Hall Park opening ceremony, which is June 30th at 5 p.m. Okay, and that would be my Parks report. Anything you want to add, David?
Well, the other thing is, although it's not part of Mrs. Van Curler's gift, we hope to put trail cams out there.
Oh, yeah, right.
And if we get any interesting videos, we will post them on the parks website, part of the Scio Township website.
And what videos would you consider interesting?
The coyote, the flying squirrel,
Sasquatch.
Yeah.
never know what.
Flying squirrel. There's flying squirrels there.
Oh, yeah.
Everywhere.
One of the surveys that the summer staff is doing is monitoring via trail cams the wildlife at some of the watering places, Liberty Pond and others. And so it's pretty cool. So they can, we hope that they can do that sort of thing to get residents.
And the other thing they're gonna be doing, the Natural Area Technicians, NATs,
Nats.
the NATs. They're gonna be doing an insect survey, a butterfly survey, and what's the other one, insect? What's the
So
third?
they're doing the bluebird monitoring also.
Are there any nests by chance? Are they nesting in the bluebird box?
They have full some bird dog.
We haven't gotten any bats in bluebird boxes yet, lots of sparrows. No bats.
No, any bluebirds?
Oh, yeah,
Oh, I
Okay.
guess.
and then the sparrows chase them away, and then we chase away the sparrows, sparrows chase them
We've got Orioles.
away. Yeah, I think those are cool, those birds are so beautiful. Okay,
Any,
That's all at the Van Curler Reserve you're talking about?
no, those will be done at different preserves. They'll probably do the particular survey at each preserve eventually, but each one is starting at a different preserve.
Very good.
I would just quickly mention that when we closed on the Van Curler purchase, which was a while ago, Carol made that pledge that she would give
oh,
money.
did she really? Yeah.
Yeah, we asked her for a discount. She said no.
Uh-huh.
But when the property becomes developed and you need money for stuff like this, come back to me.
She is very happy with the controlled burn and the way the park is developed, so that's good. So any other comments on reports? If not, we will move to old business. And I had financial statements in the packet. If there are any questions, maybe you can save them for Daryl next month. Or Barry can answer them.
Maybe.
But
Daryl's the expert now.
yeah, Daryl is our
Thank you
financial
for-
person. But I think all of us have felt that Ryan's presentation last month was very helpful.
Yes.
And that we are glad he's in charge. Any questions on financials?
38 years.
Okay, let's go on to federal grant funding. Any change that you know of there?
So continue to operate on the assumption that when we request the funds for the Hicks property, for example, for the easement, that it will be available. There's no indication that it won't be. The other thing that I heard, I think since the last time we met, was that funding for the two federal programs that we have tapped into in the past, the Agricultural Conservation Easement Program and the Resource Conservation Partnership Program, made it from out of the House of Representatives in a budget reconciliation bill that's now under consideration by the Senate. Of course, I'd like to say these funds that already were approved by Congress and should have been made available. But we have a different world that we live in these days, and so we'll see
They
what
got out of the house.
got out of the House.
Start.
Yeah, and actually,
That was ASAP, which.
RCPP, and the RCPP is the $25 million proposal that we all collectively, all the local programs here put in for, got approved. You know, have the language for the contract approved. We just have to have somebody with a pen in their hand that's authorized to sign that contract. That hasn't happened yet. So that's where we stand with that, is that if that makes its way through the Senate, then theoretically those funds will be available. So that's the only update I have on that at this time.
Thank you. Moving,
One thing.
Yeah.
What about the farmers? Payback, 119 or 160?
That's a state issue.
Oh, that's state issue.
Yep, and I'll talk about that
Oh, okay.
in my open session report.
Okay.
okay, moving on to, the next item is, we had talked last time about reviewing the, selection criteria and goals, that we use to evaluate properties. My thoughts are that I would like to do it when everyone's in town and everyone's attend.
What?
When all of our people are here, all 7 of us are in town, so that, I mean, I don't know.
Yep.
I can't speak for the other 2, but, that would be my first thought, and then I would like to do it, as I know you had mentioned, David, the board would like to meet with us, and I would certainly welcome the whole board to sit in here and talk about it. It is hard for me to schedule a separate meeting myself. I have to sort of plan ahead for those. So if we can do it during our regular meeting, have whoever and as many board members come and ask questions and make comments, that would be my preference, but I want to hear what your all's thoughts are on dates and how you want to handle that. And it's kind of a review. I would like to know, Barry sent out, I guess we have some history of how this came about. I just think we should all kind of update our understanding of how this came about and how the selection criteria that we use started. So thoughts?
Yeah, it could, if there's a whole bunch of people if it's open for discussion without, some borders, it could turn into a very, very long session. So I'm wondering if we should, send out a item by item review of, our criteria ahead of time and ask and limit the, comment period and ask people to take 3 minutes or less to just state what they think about.
I
Just
support
as a
that.
method.
Yeah, I mean, it's been the same for many years and there's something to be said with the continuity. And, we're looking at the historical nature, the ecological, the features, so it could be provided and then let us know if you have anything to add. Otherwise, we are staying consistent with the historical.
Yeah.
So is that something, Barry, you could put together for us, kind of a history and just kind of generating a document that would have our selection criteria in it that we could provide to all of us and also board members?
Yeah, having said what I said, I think it's a good idea to include the board board members, whoever wants to participate, I think that's a good idea to, you know, have inclusion and participation from the group.
And you said that board members do have questions, right?
Oh, yes, they do.
And so
I think
that's
it.
kind of
I
what.
think that's the only audience, other than LPC, the board and Murphy, the Parks Director. She, of course, would have a lot of input on anything we do for preserves. As far as conservation easements, farm, that's not in her bailiwick, but preserves are. And I know we're not actively pursuing preserves, I hope.
Not new ones.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's some additions.
Yep.
That are in the works.
Well, that's true. Yeah, that's true. So, yeah, so that would be, that would be the area that I think, the folks that I think should
Yeah.
send this to.
Should the PPP people be invited to?
Well, Murphy, as David said, I think Murphy, the Parks Director, is
Just
a good.
Murphy.
Yeah, probably, because because of your concern that when there are so many people in the room,
Yeah.
we're just talking about the foundation, you know, how. We're just sort of catching ourselves up on how this
Yeah.
came to be and why we do it the way we do, and that would help me actually too. Cause I haven't been around for. So does that sound like something you'd be okay with doing, Barry?
Oh, sure.
And so,
These are big documents.
yeah, well,
Selection criteria is big documents.
okay, yeah.
Maybe it could be a link.
Yeah, we could do links, but I guess what's most interesting to me is how we came up with these. How does this make sense that we are using these selection?
Is
criteria?
somebody questioning it?
I think there are questions, yeah. And whether we can expand them, whether we,
Oh,
you know, whether we are covering all the property, that's the gist of what I've gathered. Is that right?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, and I think I brought up once, are we making sure to cover anything that helps to meet our sustainability goals? And do we need to be more concrete to say, oh, the potential as a park or preserve? You know, are we preserving it for public access or for, you know,
Wildlife.
yeah. But I do think all that is covered, but yeah.
I think
unless-
it's covered, but I think it would benefit me to have a review of it too. And if the board has questions and wants to sit in or, you know, submit them somehow, I think we should take those into account because we all work together after all.
So do you want to do this next month?
Well, I feel as if in the summer, it might be a little, people travel, you know?
send it out anytime, but we
We
don't.
could send it out anytime, but maybe August would be the earliest, I would say, but maybe September we could do.
Don't do it in August.
Don't do it August, okay. Well, September, maybe we could shoot for that. I don't know that I don't see urgency in doing this, but I do think we should put it off to
Get it started.
at least get started. So,
So you would send it out, you would say, this is our criteria, a quick bullet of this is how we came to that. We plan to review them. Please let us know before the meeting if you have anything to add so that we can discuss it at the meeting.
and you're welcome to come to me.
Mhm, yeah,
Well, do you want to write it? You'd be good at that, but you
I
probably don't
I
have a
can
lot of
edit, I
time.
can edit, I'll edit.
Yeah, you're our communications expert.
I'm good at distilling, so if you come up with what you wanna say, if you want help,
Yeah,
being more direct and have a call to action, I'm happy to edit.
okay, that would be really helpful.
So Barry can still write it, I'm available to edit.
So no, I would say no urgency, but you know, when you can
It's on the
get it
list.
started,
And in that announcement, include the September date. Yes.
as a tentative date, yeah,
Yeah.
let's go for that.
Mhm. So,
I'm good, everybody?
That's good.
Okay, attendance, does anyone know that they will not be here in July? Lisa will not, okay?
what is the date?
That's
10th. You really won't.
Well,
Okay. And I don't know about Janine and Daryl, but I feel as if Daryl will be here, but I will find out. And again, as if we don't have enough people, you know, I'll let you all know and we will meet the following month, because we need 5 to get into closed session. So that's where I'm coming from.
1, 2, 3,
Okay,
5. We have.
yeah, we have it today, but everyone's here, you know, except for the 2 that are out.
Liz,
Yes.
I would say I'm not going to be here. I'll be out of town on the tenth, so I'll
Oh.
find somebody to fill in.
Yes,
the
please.
Zoom unless I.
Otherwise, we're gonna be sitting here
Yep,
without.
I will find somebody to cover that.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
Too bad the Eagle Scout won't be available.
Yeah, you're right. I could always ask, but he's not in the role.
Yeah. Thank you, Chris.
Yes, no
Um,
problem.
New business, Mary Beth. Do you have a minute, just a short, for a short introduction of yourself and your little bit of history about you and your
And I,
interests? Oh, yeah, please.
More appropriate for us to introduce ourselves.
Oh, yeah, we
first,
could do that.
And then.
Sure, you'd
That'd be
probably
great.
like to know who we are, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so,
Well, Mary and I have already met.
Yeah.
I'm David Reed, the board representative, board trustee and a representative to the LPC. Have some property right behind here that has a conservation easement on it, so, but Barry just left, but go ahead, Tim.
And you are very interested in land conservation. Yeah, it's obvious.
and have been involved for a long, long time.
Yeah, and Mary Beth, to some degree, I represent the farming side of what we think about and, have interest in. Because I've had a little farm myself called Skinny Farm of Scio. I spent a career involved in organic foods and agriculture and so on. And because of that, I'm very interested in land preservation in general, and in particular for helping particular young new farmers find property that they can farm on and so our buy, protect, sell mechanism is an excellent opportunity for us to move along in that direction.
Tim Redmond.
Tim Redmond, and I'm Liz Wiseman.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you gotta say your name.
Yeah, I better write them down. I think I'm sitting there listening like I'm gonna remember. It's like, yeah.
Great.
Skinny farmer.
Skinny farmer. She's a lefty.
Sometimes he brings us food,
Yeah.
like homegrown.
Awesome.
It's really great. So I'm Liz Wiseman. I feel very grateful to be here. When I applied in 2019, I guess, I had just moved here. And I started in I think my first meeting was it was 2020. December of 2020 was my first meeting, but I had just moved from Tennessee, so I don't have the background of some of these people. But my background is hiking through like waist deep snow and poison ivy in my dad's farm. So that I just, have always really loved it. And so that was, that was enough at the time. And I'm very grateful to be here. And as I've learned a ton, sitting with this group. So, Lisa and we co-chair. So go ahead.
My name is Lisa Pappas, and I have lived in Scio Township since late 2007, early 2008. And this is my second term on this commission, and just grateful to help preserve land for multiple purposes. I too started, I think, in 2020. We just drove around for.
Oh, that's right.
So Mary Beth, you haven't met Janine or Daryl
Okay.
yet, and they can introduce themselves next time. And this is Mariah Fink, who's our township attorney.
Right, we met at the township
Yeah,
board
yeah,
meeting.
Yep.
Yeah, oh, right, you did. And so if you want to take a minute to just give us some background.
Okay, so I've been here in Scio Township just like 3 years. From Dearborn, born and raised, worked in automotive. Had a historic home there that I just sold a couple years ago. I was telling Barry, Henry Ford house, right? That picture of Henry Ford standing on my front porch. If you live close to Greenfield Village, you can go there and get all your information. Throw in your room, take all your stuff, and let you look through thousands of photos to find your house. So anyway, got married and moved the same week to China with my husband for his job with Ford. And we were supposed to be gone for 2 years. We were gone for 18 and a half years. Yes, so in the meantime, he had bought his house here in Scio Township in the Polo Fields. We rented it out for 18 and a half years. Came back and have been redoing that whole house that we rented out for 18 and a half years. We lived in China, Brazil, Mexico, and then South Africa, all with Ford. I don't know, you give me that strange look that people go like, what? Meanwhile, we had a son and we came back and he's in high school and now he is at the University of Michigan studying engineering. So I am an empty nester. I am also a photographer and a master gardener. And when you move around like that, you have to have very portable skills. And so I'm kind of a freak when it comes to nature, and living in Africa just sort of fueled my whole.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, like the zebra, the giraffe, I can give you one day I can give you an entire, yeah, photographic rundown in 15 seconds of all the animals of Africa. And so living here, we kind of live amongst nature. I mean, we live at the corner of Liberty and Z, and the animals that come through our backyard is shocking to people. Because we live right across from the woods.
Yeah.
And so I'm continually, my camera sits in the kitchen. So anyway, yeah, I saw that you had this opening and I just applied and here I am.
Well, we're really glad to have you.
Yeah, no, I think it'll be interesting. I am an empty nester, like I said, we do travel quite a bit. But because we have 3 older kids, my husband's currently in Hawaii visiting my middle son.
And you're here.
I'm here, yes, I said, go ahead to Hawaii without me, put that one in my back pocket. Yeah, just for a week, Yeah, so, yeah, we do travel quite a bit, but I mean, I'm not here in August, but I'm here in July,
Well,
so.
and so that's we're all volunteers.
Right,
And we do our best and we work with everyone's schedule and
Right.
that's fine.
yeah, I'm here pretty much during
Yeah.
the year, so.
Do you have that pond in your yard? Is there?
Behind us, right behind us, yeah, yeah. Which helps with all the animals.
Yeah.
But we were having we were having a barbecue after we have Michigan season football tickets and we were having a barbecue and my husband is out there grilling. And he had some old Ford friends over and I'm in the kitchen and he says, oh, the neighbor's dog is really loving the smell of the steak. And I'm kind of half listening, I'm making food.
Oh,
And I'm like, when our neighbor's dog doesn't come over here. Because we have, electric fences. And I go, what dog? We look out and there's a coyote right next to our deck. I'm like, that is not a dog. And he's like, we got big coyotes. Oh, yeah. I say to my husband.
Canaan.
Yeah, like, oh, gosh.
Coyotes.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, no, I'm kind of a, I'm kind of a big
Yeah.
animal person. And so I do believe
Me too.
in all of it. I mean, I was before I lived, not so much in China, but or even Brazil or Mexico, but Africa just, like I said, fueled my fire.
Well, thank you. Thanks. Good to know. All right, moving on. Barry, will you give your open session consultants?
I do want to point out also that there was a very nice article from the co-chairs in the newsletter.
Lisa gets credit for that. She gets
Both
100%.
of your names are on there.
Oh, because I took the picture.
There you go. So speaking of the state issue, that continues to evolve. So let me back up a little bit for Mary Beth's benefit. In the state of Michigan, you can enter into a term agreement with the state if you have a property that has meets their qualifications. It's gonna be 40 acres or greater in size. It has to be at least 51% agricultural. And if you, or if it's less than 40 acres, you have to show that you generate more than $2,000 an acre, I think it is, in gross revenue from agricultural products that are grown on the property. Meeting those requirements, you can enroll in this program. It was originally Public Act 116. So people still call it the PA 116 program. But you enter into this agreement with the state. It's for a certain number of years. And while you're enrolled, you can, you pay your local property taxes. But if that exceeds 3.5% of your household income, you can declare everything above that as a state income tax credit. For as long as you have the agreement in place, and it could be for a minimum of 10 years, it could be a maximum of 90 years. We don't have a lot of those here in Scio. We have one that's affected by this change that's occurred over the last couple of years. And that is when, so this agreement gets recorded, it shows up in the title commitment. And when we are working on a conservation easement, since the state has an interest in the property as evidenced by this agreement that's in place, the state had to agree to allow the conservation easement to take precedence over their agreement from this PA 116 program. And to accomplish that, the state ag department provided a consent agreement to say, we acknowledge that we have this agreement with this farmland development rights agreement with the landowner. It runs for some time now. We're consenting to allow the easement to take precedence over that. They provided that to us, signed, notarized. It was recorded at closing as one of the many documents that we record. And it very explicitly says it's binding on the department and its successors. And for as long as 20 years, the state has continued to pay the tax credits for having this agreement in place, this farmland development rights agreement, based on this consent agreement that they provided. Well, a couple of years ago, apparently, the Ag Department and the Treasury Department did a program review, dove into the statute, said that those consent agreements were not really valid. And there's only a couple of instances where somebody can convey a conservation easement and still take advantage of the tax credits that are listed in statute. And these other cases don't match that, regardless of whether this consent agreement that we provided is there. And so we're going to start denying those tax credit claims. So this has been bubbling for a while. It came to a head for me in January, where I got a call from some 80-something-year-old landowners in Ann Arbor Township who said, geez, we haven't got our state income tax credit back from 2023. So this was, 8-9 months after they'd filed their return. Do I know why that might be the case? And I thought, I've heard some rumblings about this going on. I bet it's related, and sure enough, it is. And for them, it was, I think it was $10,000 or $11,000. So a good chunk of money for anybody, especially for, farmers in their 80s. And they still haven't been paid. Some other people have been affected for tax years 22 and 23. Some people have not been affected at all. They've continued to claim their tax credits and get paid for them. So it's kind of random in that way. I, along with a lot of other folks around the area and across the state, have brought this attention to the director of the department. A couple of weeks ago, the staff of the Ag Department rolled out their proposed solution to this problem. So they explicitly said they're no longer going to pay the tax credits. And actually, in some cases, they have sent tax bills to some people to say, we've recalculated your returns and you would have got this, but now you have to pay this. And since it was from 2022, you have to pay penalties on it also. It's madness. But that's the way they approach this. So
That's the solution.
the solution is for every one of these easements, and they say there's something around 150, but I also know that there's at least several people around here who have not been contacted, who have these consent agreements with the conservation easement and a farmland development rights agreement. So the number's probably larger than that, but unknown. Again, it's probably not hugely larger than that, but it could be 200. For all those easements to be amended so that the state of Michigan is listed as a co-grantee of the conservation easement. So typically it's The owner is the grantor, the Scio Township is the grantee. They want to be listed as a co-grantee, because that's one of the two situations that's identified explicitly in statute that that a landowner can do and still take the tax credits, to list the state as a co-grantee, which they do whenever they're providing funding for a property, like the Hicks property that we just drove past, that we have a purchase agreement for. They're putting in money for that. On the easement, they're listed as a co-grantee. They want to go back and do 150 or more easements, listing the state as a co-grantee, and then re-record them. And there's a long list of reasons why that's not really a viable solution, but that's what the department has rolled out for us. So in the since we've had no cooperation with the ag department, in fact, they're, if anything, digging in their heels on this. We are now in the process of having legislation drafted. And it's based on something that I came up with. You look at the legislation saying, okay, there's two instances where the statute says you can continue to take tax credits. One is listing the state as a co-holder when they're providing funds. And the other one is if somebody conveys the easement directly to the state rather than to Scio Township or Legacy Land Conservancy or Washtenaw County or any other entity. And so the proposal is to expand that and say, it's that one, and then basically for, it applies for anybody who conveys an easement to any other eligible entity, like a township, a conservancy, an educational institution, and so forth, which are identified in different parts of statute. So there's a senator from the Lansing area who has requested that the legislation be drafted at this point. And that gets referred to a agency within state government that's called the Legislative Service Bureau. And they will take apparently 4 to 6 weeks to actually draft the legislation. And then the state senator will seek to introduce it, get co-sponsors on it, and go from there. So we're confident that will address the matter going forward. There's a question about what about going backwards when people either aren't getting their tax credit payments or are getting bills. And so we're hoping to have either be retroactive or to find some other mechanism where people will be able to take their tax credits or not have to pay the tax bills that they've been submitted. So that's ongoing. There was been lots of statewide meetings giving everybody up to speed on this. We've got a good coalition going at this point with all the conservancies and the publicly funded programs across the state. One of the ag department staff people that we've been dealing with made some phone calls last Thursday and reached my counterpart in Ingham County, who runs their publicly funded program there, and that person, my counterpart, was rather blunt with them. She relayed the conversation subsequently to that, and said, you know, we should have a meeting with the director, where we can speak to him directly about these things. And she apparently agreed to this other staff person. So we'll see if this working group actually comes to fruition.
And Barry, our state senator, Sue Shink, is.
She's on board with it also. Yep.
Working on this.
Yep. Yep. She's been informed all along. We've all been working with staff from Michigan Farm Bureau, who, you know, has legislative staff, so they know everybody, all the senators, all the reps. And it was the senator from the Ingham County area that they thought was the best person to approach about asking for the legislation to be introduced. But Senator Schenck has expressed interest in being a co-sponsor of it. We've got other people who have agreed to co-sponsor it in both parties. So there's hope that there will be traction on this that actually could work its way through the legislature.
So to be clear, that this, not only the proposed legislation not only looks backward, but looks forward, right?
That's the ideal situation. Yes, and if it can't look back, to find some other mechanism, like, supposedly this is all, this ball started rolling with the Treasury Department. And we said, well, can we just put a pause on that for now while we're trying to work out some other solutions? And initially they said, oh, we can't do that because the Treasury's already got it started. And we went, yes, somebody can stop this.
Oh, so they did
Figure
put
it
a pause on it.
No, they haven't.
Oh, they haven't put a pause.
Yeah, they said, we can't do that because it's already
Oh.
been set in motion. And we said, yeah, I bet you can find
Oh,
somebody
I
to put a pause on.
Barry, is a
Go find it.
lawsuit in order here? Because it
so-
seems to me that's the only thing that works with this administration.
So there's several things in process. One of them is this potential working group. One of them is the legislation, and then the third one is a lawsuit that came up again today. Amongst my colleagues, I said, there's a bunch of people that are affected by this, including one in Scio Township. This is the Meadow.
To take away congressionally approved funding, it's unfathomable. I think who would make sense to sponsor?
It's one thing to change it for the future, but to retroactively say, no, this is, I can see them changing it, say from
Right.
2026 on, it's not gonna happen,
Right.
going backward. No, you should.
Yeah, that's a little dicier admittedly.
Right.
But they have been paying these tax credits now for as long as 20 years in some cases. And the ones that we've been dealing with are not as long as that. But still, they've been paying them all along and also they're not paying them.
For those that are impacted in Scio Township, could we pursue a lawsuit on their behalf?
That's a great question. I don't know.
You got $100,000?
We have one affected by township.
That's correct, as far as I've been able to figure out. And it was the Moore Farm on North Delhi. With the big, beautiful, is it Meadowcroft barn?
Oh, yeah.
It's now owned by a different party, Naomi Traeger. It's a smaller property, 24 acres if I remember correctly. But it had one of these farmland development rights agreements on it. And so when we went to close that easement, we got a consent agreement from the department. And it was signed and notarized and recorded at closing. She went through a process recently, so she was on my list of annual monitoring visits for the spring. And this came up in that conversation. And she had recently, the agreement runs with the property, so even if the property changes hands, the new owner has to abide by it, but you have to notify the state that the property is in new ownership. And so she went through a process not long ago to notify them of this. And of course, they didn't catch this at the time. They just said, okay, cool, you're on the agreement now rather than the Moors. And then she got this notice in the mail saying, we're not gonna pay your tax credits. So we have one landowner affected. My thought, again, this morning when this came up was, there's a number of people around who are affected by this. There's at least the one in Arbor Township property. I've spoken to some people in Freedom Township. One of them is a guy named Dale and Julie, who live in Lima Township and have their farmland agreements on that property, but we bought easements from them on some Scio property some years ago, but those apparently are not ones that are enrolled in this state program. But Dale was also, called me one day and said, how come I haven't been paid? Do you know anything? I was like, have a seat, man. I'll tell you all about it. So he's out 10 grand for 2 years. So 20 grand. So my thought is you will, do some little organizing and find an attorney who's willing to take on the case. And have them all sue the department.
Did you submit a policy idea through the Farm Bureau, or how is it that you set up the procedure to draft legislation? I mean, that's incredible that you're doing that.
This started, as I said, just a few months ago. My colleagues from Ingham County, Ottawa County, Kent County, and I went to the State Commission on Agriculture in March. And I made this publicly known. The director was not aware of it at that time. And that was at the encouragement of staff from Michigan Farm Bureau. They said, You know, we went to them and said, look, we have this issue, this is going on, it's affecting your membership also, Farm Bureau. What do we do? You know, we're not, you know, we submitted a letter last year to the department, they got no response, you know, we're kind of stuck here. And they said, go to the Ag Commission. And so we did. And so things have started to happen since then. Unfortunately, they're not good things. And so we've leaned on them to say, you know, where do we go from here? We kept hearing from the department that the statute didn't permit this. And we'd say, so where in the statute? Can you point that out to us? Or do you have a legal opinion about this? And they would say, oh, it's in the statute. And there's apparently no legal opinion. And so I sat down one night and just said, okay, where in the statute, you know, is the hang up here? And I zeroed in on this section, actually it's 2 sections, that says if the state is the holder of the easement, the grantee, you have to terminate the farmland agreement, but they still get the tax benefits. And then there's a separate section that says if the state is a co-grantee by virtue of having contributed funds from their agricultural preservation fund, then the farmland agreement has to be terminated, and then they still get the tax credits from there. And I thought, well, that's probably what they're basing this on. If you have a strict reading of the statute, those are the only 2 scenarios. And they're saying these consent agreements were a mistake. And so what do we need to do in order to revise the statute? And so I plugged, looked around different parts of the statute, figured it out, pitched the idea.
Good for you.
So I know we need to move on,
Yeah.
but if we all want to make our voices heard, you can go to mishfb for farmbureau.com. And it says, it lets everybody know there's an emerging issue with PA 116 that these conservation easements are getting held up. And you can just click submit a policy idea, and we can simply say policy idea is to fulfill what was, you know, to fulfill the tax credits that were already promised. And it's a simple form, and maybe if enough of us do this, it would help.
Good idea.
Right, okay, so.
We do need to move on though, because
Yeah,
I want
I
to
know,
keep.
and I just want to say this, I'm somewhat more interested in the legislation and how it affects protecting farmland for the future.
Mhm.
And so when the legislation is finished, you know, when you've got that written and it includes that forward looking piece of it, maybe there's something that we can do as a commission.
Oh, absolutely, to support that.
And Scio Township
Absolutely.
and all the other townships that you're working with
Absolutely.
to support that.
Yep.
And to
Resolutions of
encourage
support would be
the
welcome.
legislation becomes law.
It's possible that this drafting will occur before the legislature goes on recess for the summer. So we're hoping that it will be introduced. If not, it'll be the fall, and certainly action will be in the fall, regardless. So
Okay,
the opportunity, and
Thanks for
we'll keep
your
you posted
work.
on that. And then the last thing, not project related, is that spring monitoring is done. At this point, we had a couple minor issues at the Honeybee Andrus property. Surprise, surprise. Just came up at the board meeting a couple of nights ago. Nothing of great consequence. Somebody, dumped a little bit of trash there, as has happened before. So I took pictures and said, this has got to be cleaned up. The other somewhat more major thing was Richard permitted tree maintenance trucks to be parked on the property. And when I went out there, they were there, as well as 40 personal vehicles. So people were driving to the property, leaving their cars, jumping in the trucks, going off and doing their work, and then coming back and leaving the trucks. And it was under the idea of saving gas, so they wouldn't have to travel a long
And
distance.
the environmental benefits. That's how. you think
Yeah,
about
which
it,
is
right?
not unreasonable, but
Yeah.
when I got there, I went, this is a couple of trucks, but 40
It was
cars.
excessive, yeah.
And parking is allowed on the property if it's in conjunction with agricultural use, like the U-Pick operation that's underway as we speak. But this is clearly not an agricultural use of the property. And so it's in my report, it's in the pictures. But it was serious enough that I called Richard's mom right away.
Called his mom.
Yeah, it's so funny.
Zoning violation.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were dealing with it from a zoning aspect.
Oh,
And
okay.
Keith and I have been going back and forth about that today as well. And I think Richard's well-intentioned. I think that people may take advantage of him. He claims not to be paid for these things. That could be true. It's just, it's not permitted in the easement. And so they've been notified of that. Through
And
me.
it was cleared out the next day.
Yes, you
Oh,
know,
like
and
it was on a Friday to a Monday, there were no
Yeah.
trips there.
And I think that they were maybe done with the work anyway, but I said, they're not coming back on Monday. You got it? They're not coming back.
We could just get them to cover all those
Right
dirt as it should be.
That's right.
on. Okay, on to projects. For the Hicks property, the ESA was clean on that one, happy to say. Everything's been forwarded to local partners. They were supposed to complete their review. Their 60-day period, it expired last weekend. And I heard from County Parks this week that they were meeting with their attorney today. So I hope to have an update on that, such that we can get their approval, city and county, and it can be sent on to the state and federal programs for their review. The federal program, the new person serving in that role indicated that their review, which the previous person, Brian Thomas, had successfully streamlined. So it was taking less than 60 days, will take longer. So in the meantime, Mariah has signed off on an amendment to the purchase agreement to extend the date for closing until December.
Oh, December all the way.
You know,
But we'll try to move it
as
along.
fast as possible, but
Right,
you know, that's a crapshoot at this point. It's a real unknown.
Is that right? You think December is a crapshoot?
I don't know how long it's gonna take. You know,
Yeah,
I
no,
mean,
I know,
I
yeah.
hope it doesn't take 6 months, but I thought, let's just do it once.
Yeah, no,
You know,
that
I'm
makes
not gonna,
sense.
you know,
Yeah.
get lazy and sit back and, you know, I'm gonna keep pushing things,
Yeah.
but. You know, as soon as I can get stuff into the federal, and, you know, the state reviewers have been pretty fast. There's not as much for them to do. The federal program has more things to review, and it's the federal government. Still. And like I said, it was, you know, 30 to 60 days previously. It is probably gonna be 3 to 4 months. We don't know.
Nobody
Nobody,
used to be.
pardon?
What it used to be.
It used to be 30 to 60 days.
No, that's when he streamlined.
Yes, when it's streamlined.
Before he streamlined, it was.
It was longer than
Yeah.
that, but then Brian did a great
3 to 6
job.
months.
Yeah,
Back to where we were.
it was much more, yes, we're sort of back to where we were, maybe even worse than it was before. And that's, you know, because there are fewer people and, you know, there's other things to contend with, all kinds of stuff. So ASAP. And I just picked up, John Hicks dropped off a copy of the purchase agreement amendment. And I just need to get Jillian's signature on that and then we'll be good to go on that. Which brings us to the other matter, that's Peter Hayden, that's why Mariah is here. The phase 1 environmental site assessment for that property cited a couple of data gaps. One of them was the lack of response to FOIA requests that were made from the fire department and the planning department and some others. So they cited that. The other one was the west portion of it. Back in the late 70s, early 80s, had an ownership name that included a couple of corporate entities that had technology in their name. Or electronics is what it was. And there was a residence, a residential structure on the property. When Peter purchased the property, he raised that building and bulldozed it and graded the site. But there was a structure there and it was apparently way back, owned by an entity that had a couple of different names. One of them was electronics. And so there was some concern, some suspicion that they could have stored or disposed of some hazardous material on the property. Peter has no knowledge of that. You know, the work that he did, excuse me, was a long time ago, has no recollection of seeing anything. But it was again a data gap, and the consultant, which is ASTI Environmental, said, you know, cited both of these things as recognized environmental conditions that needed further investigation. They provided a proposal for soil samples and testing, and that was for over $13,000.
How much?
$13,100.
Jesus.
And I noted that the value of the easement on that piece, because it's doesn't have enough road frontage to be developed, was $31,000. So it's almost 50% of the value of that easement. So we have typically paid for the phase one ESA. Most of the time they turn out clean, everything's good. In a couple of instances here and elsewhere where there's been something of note that needed some additional investigation, that is a cost that has been passed on to the owner of the property. For the additional studies, testing, any remediation, you know, we want to purchase a property or purchase an interest in the property that has been declared clean by a professional outfit of this kind. So I've notified Peter of that. He wasn't exactly crazy about the idea. At one point he said, well, maybe I'll just pull out of this deal altogether. And then he said, you know, in a better moment, he said, you know, I really don't want to have to pay this much money for this. But if we have to, then I'd be willing to do that.
He's
So
gonna have to pay it one way or the other, unless he just wants to hold on to that property himself, or.
that's another option. We could buy the easement just on the east part of it and not the west part of it.
The west part is the nice part.
Yeah.
Just, let me clarify.
Yes, sir.
As I gathered, ASCI said they contacted Dexter's assessor, not Scio Township's assessor. They also said they contacted Dexter's fire department, which is probably valid because back then we were all together as a fire
Yeah.
department, but it's been,
They should know.
Scio Township has had their fire department since 1987.
Long time.
Yeah. So why didn't they contact Scio Township's fire and assessor?
It's a good question. I don't know.
Number two, because of these data gaps, because they contacted the wrong people, they're saying, we don't know, we can't say it's clean. So we have to pay
Correct.
$13,000
Or
It's
someone
confirmed.
does. Yeah.
that there's nothing there. Just because company had the name electronics in their name.
Correct.
David, their report actually says Scio Township Assessing Department. The ASTI report.
I just saw that they said they contacted Dexter's assessor. I didn't see that they contact Siles, but okay, if you say it's there, I believe it.
That's in their June 6th
Okay.
letter.
Okay.
Yeah, because that, I mean, that, if they had contacted the wrong municipality, I'd say, let's ask them to redo that, right? And to recheck. I'm sorry, I didn't ask you for permission to
Oh,
speak.
Yeah,
you
no,
can
no,
walk into
no.
my spot.
Informal here, right?
Relax, right?
That's a very matter, so by all means. So I noted in the easement, and I've, you know, provided this to Mariah as well, there's a couple of sections, couple of paragraphs. One of them is the ownership costs and liabilities, which states, in accepting and executing this easement, grantee, which is us, shall have no responsibility for or liability for costs, expenses, taxes, insurance, or any other obligation related to the property. Grantee's rights do not include the right, in the absence of a judicial decree, to enter the property for the purpose of becoming an operator of the property within the meaning of the federal comprehensive, it's the CERCLA Act, the Hazardous Waste Act of long ago. And secondly, under the environmental warranty, grantor hereby promises to hold harmless and indemnify grantee against all litigation claims, demands, penalties, and damages, including reasonable attorney's fees arising from or connected with the release or threatened release of any hazardous materials on, at, beneath, or from the property, or arising from or connected with a violation of any environmental laws by grantor or any other prior owner of the property.
So there's our problem right there.
Pardon?
There's our problem.
No, we're exempt.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, but that's what we
It's Peters. right?
Yeah, that's Pete, okay. I
Peter's
got it.
Correct. So regardless, we still get a phase one um, for properties in which we're just purchasing a conservation easement. And you know, if there was something really nasty out there, we wanted to have it cleaned up. And there's, you know, a property that we know about,
Yeah,
you know, where that's been the case, and there's been some, you know, remediation action on that. You know, a whole different situation, but you know, that was something that occurred then. In this case, we're purchasing an interest in the property, not the title to the property. And so Mariah's here to address your questions and concerns, and by all means, if you've got anything to add to it, please do.
Yeah, I'm not really concerned about liability. I mean, partly for that, but also because we're not purchasing the property ourselves.
Yeah.
Conservation easement liability for the environmental would be so remotely attached to us. But my concern is if we think that there's a hazard out there, is that the way the township wants to spend this somewhat limited amount of money? So that would be my question. It would be, you know, that to me would be a board question, but but that starts here with your consideration of this potential issue and then your informing the board and recommending one way or the other. So how likely is it that there's actually an environmental issue out there is one of the questions. And then the next question is, you know, do you want to spend your money this way if there is a potential issue
Or
out
the
there?
easement.
For the easement,
Yeah.
yeah. So if Mr. Hayden did go ahead and get the phase two and it turned out to be clean, then that would, you know, we would have that information. But to say we don't need a phase two based on what's in front of us is also to say, in my opinion, we don't really care what's out there, which
So that-
I don't know if
yeah.
that's true.
And that may create a precedent that we don't want to have. And so if Peter did agree to pay the 13, and we're willing to go ahead with the phase two environmental
Then you have,
assessment, then we'd be okay.
well, then you have all the
Yeah,
information to make a decision
Yes,
on
you
whether or
know.
not, yeah,
So then you wouldn't have this concern anymore.
correct.
Yeah.
So upshot is Peters either got to do that or we can't participate. We can't. Well, we've got to know.
first of all, if there's a conservation easement on that property, nothing can ever be built on it. Because the conservation easement prohibits development.
Correct.
So that property will sit the way it is in perpetuity. So whatever's in the ground remains in the ground. Number one. Number two, knowing Peter the way I do, he wouldn't develop it anyway, most likely.
Right.
Even if we didn't conserve it. He doesn't like people, oh, never mind. So I'm of the mind, and I understand your concern about setting a precedent. I think it was Liv, right? But we're buying a conservation easement, we're not buying the property. So I guess the question is, you know, I mean, we passed on a piece of property that has arsenic and we almost got a sewage plant out there because we didn't buy that piece of property. I'm talking about a piece on Baker Road. We almost, I don't think it would happen now, but I mean, there were pieces moving forward. Private wastewater treatment plant on that property. Had we bought that, arsenic and all, that would not have been possible. So my thought is if we preserve the property as it is, then there can be no development, there can be no more houses. And I don't know, what is the purpose? I guess, see, this is one thing the board wants to know. What is the purpose of the LPC? What are we doing? Are we just buying land to save trees? Are we buying land to save roots for deer and wild animals to move? Are we buying land just because it looks nice? That's what they want to know. And so in this particular case, this, I think, but Mariah's right, this is a board decision, I think.
Well, I think it is a board decision, but because we're LPC, I hate to open the door to the next project where there is some minimal contamination. and they say, well, you did it this time, what's different about our project?
No, we don't know that there's got, this is.
No, I know we don't, I know, but that's because we always do our environmental site assessment, and we get a clean one. And this time we don't have that.
You
So
know,
I,
one of the things that you could do is you could request the board to pay for part of it. You know, out in the real world, it's pretty typical that parties would share that if they go to the second level, that the buyer and seller would have some type of agreement to share the cost. So that would be something, you know, I think that what David said is true. The board is interested in what are you trying to preserve? Like, what's the goal here? But I think for this particular property, it's a little bit about, how much do you want it? And, you know, if it's something that you really had at the top of your list, then maybe we want to do some extra steps to make sure that it's available to the township.
as far as top of the list, there's just so little open space left inside of township, and that's always where I'm coming from, to try to preserve what we can of the quiet spaces for all of the purposes, the wildlife and.
And Peter has
Yeah.
donated easements on a lot of his
Couple
property
hundred acres.
in Scio to Legacy Land Conservancy, including land on either side of these pieces. So it's for us to sort of fill in a couple of gaps. that are
Yeah.
there. It was not one that was high on our radar, to be honest. But it's like, oh, this is an opportunity for a relatively small amount of money to add on a couple of key pieces to a large block of land. And Peter owns property across the road too.
Right, and he has mentioned that he, you know, he wants to.
He's interested in conserving that
Yes,
also, so.
yes.
uh,
So, so
I wanna
Ron's
use that opportunity.
Ryan's suggestion that we see if the board would split it 50-50 with Peter, that would be a goodwill gesture on both sides. And how do you all feel about something like that?
I think it merits a motion to support, to recommend to the board, because we want to keep in his good graces and be a good partner. Instead of making it all up to him to pay for it, I think that is a very decent thing to do. I would be in support of making a motion to share the cost, split the cost of the ESA.
Yeah, and that creates goodwill for any other properties that he may be willing to serve in the township. So yeah. Okay, other thoughts?
That would also set precedent. Not that I'm opposed to it.
Well, it would, but this is, you know, case by, yeah, you're right. I mean, I hear you.
Just saying, you know, I mean.
Well, should we ask him to cover it first? I mean,
He said he would.
He said he
he
would.
said he would,
Reluctantly. But he said he would.
I think.
but I mean, like you said, it wasn't a top priority, and it's got all those pipes all over the place.
That's
It's
the
a
other
septic
parcel. That's, this,
Oh,
I'm talking about the
yeah.
open.
The open part.
That's where the house is. And that's a septic.
Which is
field.
Yeah,
There is another piece of property that this commission is considering that requires a good deal of remediation, right? And so on.
Well, not at this point. We're sort of,
That
table. Yeah.
perhaps in the future, so
And there could be a distinction between additional study, which is what's proposed here, and remediation. So, you know.
Very good. I
Soil
like that.
testing and
What about that?
so forth is one thing, but, you know, if there was something there, and I would say in this case, if there was something there, that's Peter's responsibility to cover.
Yeah.
If there had to be any remediation of the property, and I think he understands that as well.
So what do you think about that? Splitting the cost of additional testing?
of what?
So the precedent that we would be setting is only that in this case, we are splitting the cost of additional testing, but any remediation,
$13,000 bill, right?
well, so it would be like, it's split it, right?
I'm
But
not
not,
super worried about precedent, that's
Oh,
not
okay.
something that that bothers me. Like each one of these properties is incredibly unique, right? That's why we're having the
Yeah, yeah.
conversation.
True.
Every property is unique, every property is gonna come with certain different items. This particular property, what I hear you saying is that you'd like to have this study done because there is a future option possibly to get more land from this landowner. So in that vein, you're considering asking the board to pay for some of it. That's not gonna be the next guy, right? The next guy might only have one piece and he might have a environmental issue that is more no. And then we're gonna say, hey, we're not really interested in going forward until you've had this second study at your cost. So I wouldn't worry about setting a precedent. It's like one of my least
Yeah.
favorite words,
Yeah.
which I know, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that what I hear you saying is that there is value in this property today, but there's value in the relationship for
Yes,
future property.
exactly.
Which I think is an important, that's one of the reasons I wanted to come talk to you today,
Yeah.
is like, tell me why, you know, why this is important to you.
Yeah.
And just going down the list of all the other properties that we have pursued over the years, the ones that have closed. And I don't think any other one other than the Baker Road one, which we didn't, haven't yet anyway, acquired any interest in. I don't think any other one has had any problem. I don't see anything that jumps out at me. So this is, there've been two instances. One's the Baker Road one, this one, where something showed up in the phase one that needed some additional study.
And Peter's property application number is what again? I know you have that in here. I'm just asking you instead of.
This isn't open session. so-
Yeah.
No, I know. Oh yeah, I was just writing out a motion.
2024-3.
2024 dash.
But this is really huge.
So as a goodwill gesture, the Land Preservation Commission recommends splitting the cost of the ESA for property blankety blank.
What about
Something big, he may just decide not to do anything.
You could,
And just let it sit,
you could,
but then he has to disclose it when he sells.
correct.
It's nice and direct.
Or I think the university, it's in this will for the university to take all this property. And
Now-
if there was something there and he didn't want to address it, then we could approach him about just buying the easement on the east piece also. He wants to do both pieces.
Is that on the same 2024?
Yeah,
Three?
one application.
One, okay.
And depending on what it is, you could buy it with that environmental issue anyway, but all of these are, without knowing what's there, it's hard to say.
Well, knowing if anything is there.
If there was an issue, is it possible to cut out that?
That's another possibility, for sure. We could exclude that from the easement.
But that's one step down the road.
Yeah.
If I s-
Correct.
So,
Do you think that it is important to have in the language, because he's offered to pay for it? He'd rather not, but he would do it. And so do we either ask him and then if he says no, okay, we will? Or do we say, as a goodwill gesture in appreciation for our long-term relationship, to be proactive about acknowledging that that means a lot to us? And just
yeah.
be transparent about an appreciation for the long-term land preservation initiatives of this landowner.
I think Peter would appreciate that.
He surely would.
Well, let's do that.
Okay.
I mean, that's a winning proposition. Absolutely.
Share the surprise cost.
We're still in public, right? So we
Yeah,
can't say.
we can do it right now.
Yep,
Okay.
do it right.
So, the LPC,
Stop, someone gonna write this down.
it's written down right here.
Down except for that little piece Lisa
Can you
just.
send it to me? Okay. But do you want this in the minutes?
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Okay.
I'll send it to
So let me think
Here, let me
about
have my
this
pen
one
back.
sec.
All right.
you. I'll write while you talk.
in appreciation for the long-term relationship or slash, never mind, wait, let me think first.
Just say, we recommend, that we cover half of the cost.
Yeah.
It could be a simple.
Okay, so we'll add it at the end. We make a motion to the Board of Trustees
To recommend.
That the cost of a phase 2 environmental site assessment for property application number 2024-3 be split between Scio Township and Peter Hayden in.
shouldn't we not say the name?
No, we can.
Oh, we can't.
Well, we
Oh,
have to
it's-
actually
it's
because we're.
in
oh, because it's in public now. Okay,
Sorry, is that a set amount or is that their estimate?
That is their proposal for soil testing and analysis. And then if there needed to be anything else beyond that, there's additional cost involved in
This is
that.
just an assessment.
Is that a negotiable amount? $13,000?
I would say no. I asked them to provide a proposal for what work they say needs to be done, and that's what they came up with.
Okay,
I don't really want to stick around that.
okay. I would like to make a motion to recommend to the Board of Trustees that Scio Township split the cost of the Phase 2 ESA with Peter Hayden for property application number 2024-3, period. We make this motion in appreciation for the long-term relationship and land preservation efforts with this.
he'll
Community
understand
member.
that. I don't know, I need to say that motion.
Okay, well, I just think it's nice to somehow acknowledge that it's a goodwill gesture and appreciation for,
You'll get that.
who get it? Oh, yeah.
Did you say though, David, that you would appreciate that?
Yes.
Well, so I think it's worth it. Why not?
Yeah, I think
That's
it's
why
good.
we're doing
I
it.
think it's good for the board of trustees to hear
I
that.
see that too.
So-
So write down,
Um,
yes.
So in active tense, a motion to split the cost of the Phase 2 ESA for property blah, blah, blah with Peter Hayden.
We have to put the number in there somewhere.
Yeah, that's my blah, blah, blah.
I would-
In appreciation for his
Land preservation efforts.
long-term preservation efforts.
So long term in appreciation for long,
Preservation, land preservation.
His long-term,
do we have support for that motion?
We have to put what?
She asking for support.
Oh,
Yeah,
second.
Lisa's motion. David second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? No opposed. The motion passes.
So I have two other,
We'll get that to you, David, and.
Okay, thank you.
get that to the board for the next meeting.
Such a good one.
Um,
Yeah.
so two quick notes here. One is that, I tracked down, how much land in Scio that Peter has already conserved through easement donations is 217 acres,
See, there you go.
217.
217.
Bravo.
And then my next question is for Mariah, and that is, so the board's gonna authorize this payment. The bill will come in. Peter could pay his half, the township could pay its half, or the township could pay for the whole thing, and then, well,
His taxes?
no, to take it out of the proceeds of closing.
Oh,
Yeah, we could do that.
yeah, that might be less painful.
Which would mean that we would have to revise the purchase agreement amendment.
Yeah, so after the board votes, because we don't know what they're gonna
Right.
do, we can have that conversation. It's a great idea, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So in the meantime, motion's passed. I will notify Peter. He's waiting for my call this afternoon.
Great.
I think that's great. That's very generous.
I wonder if do we have any awards for community members? I feel like, it's
No,
like-
but we could start.
it would be nice to have an
Our free
award
time.
for land conservation efforts.
So that's the end of the open session.
Open session.
We have some things. to-
And then
closed session.
Barry, will you summarize what you plan to cover in closed session?
Yes, Ready for that?
As for total terms.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I did forget that. It's time for public comments.
Well,
Kathleen,
no,
got nothing?
his summary
Okay.
of closed session topic is first, then public comment.
Oh, yeah. I don't know what was wrong with my.
She's not gonna, you're actually.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, we can talk about this.
Okay, thank you, David.
Yes, so. Updating on a couple of projects. And some new inquiries. Um. And one property in particular, there's potential for, I don't know if there will be a motion coming out. But certainly, some discussion about a property. It's, again, not one that you've made a recommendation on previously. I think it's just sort of the next phase of our pursuit on that one. So well, there might be a motion on that.
So you're moving in to go into closed session under 15-268 one.
A minute, we're not going.
Yes.
But
Summarize.
that's what, yeah.
Yeah,
We're
so,
not, we're just summarizing, we
Summarize.
summarize it for people and then we have public comments and then we go into closed session.
yeah, so
So
people,
that people know, oh,
You,
sorry.
you should, when you make your motion, you should say which
Right.
part of the statute.
Oh, we know.
Yeah.
We will, don't worry. We do that.
so again, one potential action back in open session at, at the end of.
Okay. Is that your summary?
Yep.
Okay. Kathleen has no comments. Chris, anyone online that's hand raised?
Yes, we have Rob Pattinson.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for that detailed discussion, and I totally agree that the goodwill aspect of your motion was a very good idea.
I have an edit.
Sends
I
the
have an
right
edit for you.
message. Were any of you able to see the videos that John Boyd took of the flooding on the Baker Road property in
Gosh,
that
we forgot
email?
to talk about that.
Yes, it was,
We actually
Um,
forgot to talk, that was our addition to the agenda.
Skip right past that.
well, it's good.
That's my bad. Yes, Rob, go ahead with your comment, but then I would like to take a minute to discuss that.
Good. I was able to see the video last night, and I was shocked. Pam has talked a couple of times in public comment about how bad it was, but I was shocked at how bad it really is. The flooding went right up to the back door, literally to the back door of their home. It ruined their patio that they just installed last year. But most importantly, just to the east of their backyard property line on the Lutton property, there's like a homemade dam there. And then underneath that, there's a culvert that's dumping water out from the Lutton property onto the kids' property. And then apparently the kids' previous owner has some sort of culvert underneath their yard that dumps it out across Baker Road. But I was very surprised that the Lutton property has a culvert that's dumping when it rains, thousands of gallons of water onto their backyard. So that was very unusual, and that's part of the Many Hands project, and LPC is involved in that. So I hope you guys take an interest in that, and maybe we can help them do something about that problem.
I don't understand why we're not suing them. You can't do that. You can't take your word
Well, I know,
on somebody
we'll
else's
have to pay to
property.
do that. So Rob, thank you.
Wow.
You brought that to my attention and I had forgotten that. I would like to take just a short minute, because we're already at 5:30, to talk about, it was the last document that sent you all. And it was the Andrew Feldkamp, who's Pam's son-in-law, just described what's happening on the property. And I was hoping that you, David, so this is part of the Lutton property. There are two applications that Dave Lutton has submitted to our group. We have sort of tabled that since 2023. Because it's kind of moved on to the board level, but I'm hoping you can just sort of update us and take into account, what's going on here, what Pam's talking about.
I don't know much more than you. I had a brief meeting with him, which I thought we were gonna talk about. What he's doing, and all he wanted to do was to just postpone his meeting with the board. That was his whole reason for coming here. I thought we were gonna be talking about other things. But at that meeting, I offered to buy the entire piece of property again. We have a standing, Barry, you remember the standing offer to Heisler? Anytime he wants to sell it to us, we can
Yeah.
check to him.
Yeah.
I told him that. I said, anytime he wants to sell it, he said, well, that's not gonna happen. So, but his property hasn't been annexed yet, so we'll see. But no, I don't know. I've contacted Andrew and asked him if I and board members and anyone here in the LPC, and I guess Rob, Pam, if you want to, Pam probably already knows. Rob, if you want to come, you're more than welcome to tour the site, because I want to see where this culvert is. Seeing a picture is totally, I want to put all the pictures together and see where this culvert is in relationship to his house, in relationship to the Lutton property. So he's not available next week, but after next, we'll set it up for some time in a couple of weeks to go out there and walk the property. I want to see what this is all about. Because he also talked that there's actual sewer grates in his yard, open like rain sewer gate, not sanitary, but rain sewer grates in his yard.
In Andrews' yard.
I believe Pam said they were in his yard, yes. So, but that's what I want to see out there, so. But I can't understand how anyone can even think it's legal to allow that much water to pass onto somebody else's property.
David, I wonder, because of what was said about Dave Lutton having to pump, water to prove that the well option involved in his wanting to sell that other piece of property.
Mhm.
I'd like to know if that water flowing through there was from that pumping.
Right.
And if it is, anyway, that's part of the picture.
That shouldn't be Feldkamp's problem, though. That's
No.
Lutton's problem.
No.
He should have dealt with that.
Right, right, but it would not, for Andrew's sake, it would not be occurring in that.
Theoretically, that would never happen again. That much water would never happen again, theoretically. But if that's a result, if that was a result of that,
Still,
800
culvert
eight hundred
dumping,
gallons a minute
Yes, 800 gallons
Jesus
for
Christ.
3 days.
for
So,
3 days?
Yeah, they might have had periods to test for recovery of the aquifer. But yes, it was 3 days.
that's a serious amount of water.
Yeah.
That's pumped through there.
So that's a concern for the township. I'm personally very happy that the board that we know about it again, but that the board is really kind of listening to the Feldkamps and Pam and John, because that's a real concern. I'm glad that we're taking it seriously.
And something else he's doing to the piece across the street is putting it on a temporary road and bringing in heavy equipment to remove, is it 2 farm dump sites, Barry, do you know? Or do you know about this, the garbage dumps in the back, Baker Road? No,
I'm
nothing.
out of the picture.
Barry's kind of been out of it since 2023
He
too.
was told that he had to remove those 2 junk piles if he was going to sell the property to us. And so what he's done is he's put in this temporary road, he's cleared a road north-south, going north-south parallel to Baker, but back in the woods to get to those dump piles. And I understand an anonymous source has told me that he may be trying to spread it out to cover it as opposed to remove it. So I'm gonna see if I can get back there and take a look.
David, do you know anything about the city of Dexter and their interest in doing what Dave Lutton wants to do with that one?
Well, it was we talked about it last night. It was in the board packet. You might want to take a look at that. Dexter is making a change to their master plan and that changing the language of whom they'll deal with when they want to annex property. They won't necessarily be dealing with the township. They'll be dealing with the landowner. That's what they're proposing in their master plan. So that means they would be able to deal directly with Dave Lutton. Theoretically, I don't know, Mariah, is that legal? Don't the townships have to be involved in an annexation?
Not
Not
necessarily.
necessarily? Oh, okay. So,
It makes sense.
oh yeah,
For goodwill.
good neighbors.
Yeah.
So there is some movement in
Yeah,
Lutton's
it is.
direction.
It's not a good movement for the township, I don't think, if they go forward with that. So that
The
change.
township did provide comments to the city of Dexter on that specific issue.
On Tuesday, the last board. Yeah.
Well,
sorry.
a letter was sent to the city.
Yeah, that was in the board packet. from
Oh, did you get it?
Tuesday. Yeah, yeah.
So anyway,
So, yeah, but thank you for going through the Feldcamp property and stuff. So let's, so we've done our consultant summary, anyone else raising their hand, Chris, for public comment?
No other hands are raised.
Okay, then, we are gonna go into closed session. We'd love to have you stay if you want to. Sure. Yeah, who would like to make our closed session?
I'm wondering if Mary Beth might want to read that.
Okay, Mary Beth, do you have an agenda in front of
I
you?
don't have one.
Okay,
I'll give
here,
you this one. There is a typo on your
where?
statute. 15,268 1D.
One D, oh, no,
That's okay.
okay. It's been like that for months. Thank you.
So I'm reading this closed
So,
session.
yes, we are going, it's a motion, I'll just, since this is your first meeting.
Brand new, great.
It's a motion, to go into closed session for a discussion, and then you just read that paragraph.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay, discussion of pending property evaluations pursuant to section 15.218 of the Michigan Open Meetings Act, specifically to consider the purchase of lease of real property up to the time an option to purchase or lease that real property is obtained.
Thank you. So it's Mary Beth's motion, support,
yes.
Tim's, and we are gonna do a roll call vote. David, can you
yep, hold on.
call the roll, please?
And that was 0.251.
One.
2681D.
1D.
It's like that.
Six.
I'll fix that.
One
1D.
That one.
D or B?
D is a dog. D is a
Okay,
dog.
one D.
Just go.
All right, roll call on this, Mary Beth,
Yes.
yes, Lisa,
Yes.
David, yes, Tim,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes,
it passes, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5-0.
no opposed. Okay, thank you, Chris.
What was
We're going into. And we have a recommendation. I'm going to make a motion to recommend that the Board of Trustees approve an update to an appraisal for property application number 2021-3 if needed.
That's support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes.
Great.
Now,
You'll send me, I think we
I will
have
send-
three things for the board, right?
I know if it's shoot, do we have 3?
2, okay.
Okay, and now we just have a.
Public comment?
Right, I'm on the wrong agenda here. Yeah, could we have a motion to adjourn?
No, wait, public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Nothing?
No, we're not doing public comment, but we do have to approve our closed session minutes.
Oh.
And so may I have a motion to approve our closed session minutes
So moved.
and support?
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Closed session minutes are approved. And now we need a motion to adjourn.
Don't we have public comment?
We did that before
Closed session.
closed session. That was right.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I beg your pardon. I'm thinking.
Well, I did the same thing earlier, so.
Yeah, I move to adjourn, and I'd like to include the note to have everybody here. Please read the note that I sent out about 15 minutes before we came in here
Okay,
today. Yeah.
thank you.
Who approved the minutes? Who seconded the motion to?
Oh,
approve the minutes?
I would say Tim, we did it at the same time.
Okay, Tim, let's hear it.
And Tim made a motion to adjourn, I will support. All in favor? Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you all. Barry, thank you.